Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. It seems we're getting more support for Sherry LeBlanc, and it's supposed to combine her Necro cards, which are the cards that Zone gave to help power up her deck, alongside her original strategy. So the first card is Sage de Fleur. It's a level 8 Dark Attribute Spellcaster effect monster with 2,900 attack and 0 defense. You can only use this card's name's first and second effects once per turn each. 1. You can target one monster you control, and one other card on the field. Special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, destroy those targets. 2. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one other monster in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, then add one level 1 plant type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. The way I consider this card is very similar to something like the Kaijus, because you're able to get rid of one of your opponent's cards in order to summon this card. It does require you to get rid of one of your own, but considering you're making your opponent lose a card, it's definitely not a bad effect. The trouble is, it is a bit of a destruction effect, so that means if they can't be destroyed by this ability, you can't really use this effect. It's fine as a summoning condition, and it's decent if you can consistently use it. It's nice that it's not you can only have this as a once per duel effect, and rather it being once per turn, because that way you have flexibility to go into rank 8 Exceeds plays, or to go into your level 10 monster. The secondary ability is just helpful to recover one of your tuner monsters. A lot of the Synchron type monsters you'll want are plant types, so it has that flexibility. It's also very good for things like Glow Up Bulb and various other cards that meet this condition. But my only concern is it does need a little bit of setup before you can actually rely on using the effect. The next card is White Steed of the Floral Knights. This is a level 6 Wind Attribute Beast type effect monster with 2,400 attack and 1,800 defense. You can only special summon this card in this card's first effect once per turn. You can only use this card's name's second effect once per turn. 1. If you control a level 2 or lower monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. 2. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one card you control, negate the attack, and if you do, destroy that target. Okay, so this card helps just to special summon itself very easily. You will probably have a couple of level 2 or lower monsters out on your field anyway, and if you're using Fleur Synchron, which is a level 2 monster and a tuner monster, to synchro with this card, then you can bring out your Fleur de Chevalier anyway. It's not a bad condition. The secondary effect is fine because it actually protects one of your monsters from an opponent's attack, but it does come at the downside that you do have to get rid of one of your cards, and it does require this card to be banished. Had this not required the banishing effect, I think this would have been a decent effect, but as it is, it's a little bit lost on me. Necro Synchron is a level 2 Dark Attribute Machine type tuner effect monster with 200 attack and 400 defense. You can only use this card's name's second and third effects once per turn each. 1. This card's name becomes Fleur Synchron while on the field or in the graveyard. 2. You can target one other face-up monster you control, increase its level by 2 until the end of this turn. And 3. If this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material for a wind attribute monster, you can special summon one level 1 plant type monster from your deck. So this is an upgrade to Fleur Synchron. It's a dark version of it. The first effect just treats it as a Fleur Synchron, so it can be used to summon any of your fusion or extra deck monsters. I think there's also synchro monsters in there. The secondary ability to boost one of your monsters' levels by 2 is actually also quite decent. Say you've got one of your level 4 monsters out, and you want to be able to get a level 8 monster, your synchro, you're easily able to then boost that to level 6 and then use this card to get out that monster without having to add and summon additional monsters. The third ability is likely to happen because I think most of your monsters are going to be wind attribute anyway, and it just lets you bring out a level 1 plant type monster from the deck, so that can also be used for a further synchro summon. Baroness de Fleur is a level 10 Wind Attribute Warrior type Synchro effect monster with 3,000 attack and 2,400 defense. It requires one tuner plus one or more non-tuner monsters. You can only use this card's name's second effect once per turn. 1. Once per turn, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. 2. Once while face up on the field, when a card or effect is activated, as a quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And 3. Once per turn during the standby phase, you can target one level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon that monster. This, in initial impression, is really powerful. For starters, the summon condition on it, even being a level 10, is not difficult. There are so many monsters to meet this condition, it's not funny how quick you can get this out. The first effect lets you just every turn destroy a card, be it a spell, trap, or monster. So it doesn't matter what your opponent is running or how defensively they're running, they're going to be losing a card. It doesn't matter if the card is face up or face down. It's so generic an effect, it's so good an effect. The secondary ability is just once to be able to shut down a card effect. This can be disruptive of your opponent depending on how much knowledge you have of what they're running. Even though it is only once, basically when it's on the field as an effect, it's still decent enough to be justified in running it, especially combining it with the first effect to annoy your opponent. The third effect, this is the one I would question about, because it's just once per turn during the standby phase. You're able to kind of swap this card out with another synchro monster, with another monster that you've got in your graveyard that happens to be level 9 or lower. I think it's okay. It would have been better if it had been a quick effect, because you then could have changed it to something that your opponent activates, which could have threatened this card. But as it is, it's just a very weak effect, and just I don't understand why Konami went with this. Fleur de Fleur is an equipped spell card with the effect. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. You can only use this card's name's third effect once per turn. 1. Activate this card by targeting one level 2 or lower monster in your graveyard. Special summon it, but its effects are negated, and if you do, equip it with this card. If this card leaves the field, you destroy that monster. 2. The equipped monster gains 700 attack. And 3. If this card is sent from the spell and trap zone to the graveyard, you can equip this card to a synchro monster you control. Okay, so my opinions on this card. The first effect is obviously for your Fleur Synchron or for your your dark equivalent. So then you're able to then use them to synchro summon into further monsters. It does give a stat boost as a secondary ability, but it also passes that on to your synchro summoned monster when this card leaves the field. So it's definitely useful because it can be quite recyclable. It has a little bit of a Monster Reborn effect, and it's definitely something you might want to run 1 to 2 copies of. I would stay clear of 3 because that's definitely going to clog up your deck. Synchro Dilemma is a continuous spell card with the effect. You can only use this card's name's first effect once per turn. 1. During the main phase, you can activate one of these effects. Send one synchron monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard to special summon one monster from your hand. Or target one other card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon one synchron monster with a different original name than that card from your hand or graveyard. Quite conditional, but it's fine as an effect. For starters, just being able to send a synchron monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard just to special summon any of your monsters is really decent. It's not got to be any particular archetype, it doesn't have to be a specific level, it doesn't have to meet a requirement in terms of its attack or defense stat. The secondary ability, I would say, is better if you're looking at trying to synchro summon but you don't have a synchron monster on the field. The interesting thing about this card is it's not just useful for Sherry LeBlanc's cards or her archetype, it's actually really useful for Yusei Fudo's as he relies on synchron monsters. It's part of his main archetype and his strategy. And then it just mentions here that we're getting a few different reprints, as we have Sorcerer de Fleur, we've got Necro Fleur, Fleur Synchron, and we have Chevalier de Fleur. I will make a small separate video actually going over those cards, but as the video is kind of extended a bit longer, I will leave that in the description down below. What do you guys think of those cards, especially the new boss monster? I'd love to hear your opinions. If you've got anything, please leave those in the comments, and I'd love to discuss and share our opinions.